Welcome to the Flick and the Bosman show off the very successful episode 13 where Dave took over the GM role of the New York Mets and had them looking great for the future. I am going to attempt to do the same in a much harder job for the Jets today. So take it away, Bosman, and you can grill me on this job.
Absolutely, Flick, and I was curious to see whether or not you would take my other suggestion for the intro music, which was "Broken Wings" by Mr. Mister. This has been a broken franchise for much of your lifetime and my lifetime, but you're the fan. Um, so the question really is to start. How do you build a winner? What are the most important aspects of having a winning team?
Certainly, the most important aspects I feel are quarterback and coach. And right now, the Jets certainly don't have a coach I can go forward with, and I'm not sure about the quarterback. I really wanted him when they drafted him, and I may have to admit I was wrong and go in a different direction, or try to resurrect him with some good coaching. And
So,
probably depends on where they end up in the draft.
yeah, so we'll talk about the coach in a minute. Hillary from Branchburg was asking a simpler question, which is, you've seen 2 years of Darnold. Do you know enough yet? It sounds like you're saying the jury's out.
The jury's out because he hasn't played enough, and that's actually part of the problem as well. I mean, he had mono last year. He was seeing ghosts 2 years ago, and now he has some mysterious leg injury, which is sidelining him this week and put him to the bench last week. So durability is an issue, I guess, if you consider mono not being durable. But when you look at quarterbacks who played 100 or more games in a row at the position, Sam doesn't seem to be one of those yet.
Yeah, it's the mono thing. It seems like I wouldn't have an issue. To me, this is like, a pitcher, missing time because of a knee injury. You worry about his elbow and his shoulder. You don't worry about, with the quarterback, you worry about their arm and whether or not they're taking too many hits. I don't see that's the case with Darnold. So I don't necessarily worry about his durability issues yet. Recognize that he hasn't played a lot. And to my stance as a non-Jet fan, having terrible coaching, which he has, and several different ones, right, or at least two different ones, and a very bad supporting staff means you don't get a complete grade yet, right? So that's I would agree with you that the jury's out yet. So question two on the quarterback is, you're 0-5. The Jets have currently the worst point differential in the league by far, meaning they seem like the front runner for the number one overall pick, which would be Lawrence.
There are lots of other teams that haven't won yet, though. But
Well,
yes,
there are two, actually. There's only two. The Giants and the Falcons are the last two. So if the Jets, they have to play comfortably high, comfortably ahead, if you will, from where they are. But would you essentially tank? And I think thing number one for that is, don't make any moves at coach. If you think Gase is as bad as I think you think he is, leave him in there for the rest of the year and not make a move, knowing that he may be causing your team to lose more games than they might otherwise. Are you essentially tanking for Lawrence at this point?
am I tanking? I don't like to tank. This is an extreme circumstance with a very valuable pick. Whether you pick Lawrence or try to trade the pick, a lot of people will want Lawrence, and I don't like getting him by going 0-16. But I don't like giving up the next 3 or 4 drafts to get him either. Um, I'd like to have him. He's probably better than Sam, but I don't want to give up a ton. I don't want to lose intentionally. So it sounds like I'm talking out of both sides, but it's more, let's see what happens. If we happen to win a couple games and don't get the number one pick, fine.
Are
I'll
you going to fire Gase between
Oh,
on the end of the season?
100%. 100%. I would have fired him games ago.
Okay,
And
you'll fire him first day on the job.
oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'll go without a coach.
I'm not sure if that would improve your chances or not to win games.
I'll coach.
That probably would improve your chances, actually.
You know,
I know
the idea
you manage
is
the clock well.
well, you got a defensive coordinator who's been an interim coach before in Greg Williams. Yeah, but he was in New Orleans, the whatever gate it was, scandal, Bounty Gate.
Yeah.
So I don't want him as the coach going forward. I want Eric Bieniemy, and
Ah,
it's a little tough to get him during the season when he has another job. But the day Kansas City's season ends, I'm making him a huge offer and giving him a huge amount of power. And let's go forward with him.
that was my next question. Okay. Uh,
Now, why should he say yes to the Jets? Well, he shouldn't. But if he has more power and more money than he'd get from other teams, maybe he'd be interested. For some reason, he hasn't been offered a head coaching job that he's found attractive enough to take yet. I'll try to make him an offer he finds that good, that strong. Let's take
yeah,
a shot.
yeah.
I
I
don't
think
necessarily want to retread. I'll take somebody from college. I don't know the college coaches as well, but again, a lot of them get paid more than pro coaches do and don't have to put up with the aggravation.
I saw a thing, and someone had written into Sports Illustrated this morning that suggested that the Jets should not only get Lawrence, but they should draft ATN with their second first round pick, and then go get Dabo Sweeney to coach them.
Well, I think the more realistic thing that I've heard is to get the Clemson offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I don't think
Um,
Dallas wants to go.
yeah, so Dabo Sweeney, I think he's getting, I don't know exactly, but in the $6 to $8 million range, and I doubt Gase is getting that much. So, why would he leave going 10-1, 11-1, a bowl game? Why would he find the Jets more attractive than that? I don't know. Now, with the offensive coordinator and the quarterback coming together, make some sense. I could see that.
Yeah, it may not hurt to have the conversation. I mean, Saban was lured away from what was he? Is it LSU before he went to the pros for a brief?
He went to pros. Yeah, I know he was at LSU some. Yeah, and now he's got a great gig at Alabama. Plus,
Yeah,
he's
no, you're
getting
not
up
getting
there
him.
in age. But
I'm not suggesting Saban. I'm just saying you can lure a coach away from what.
well,
Like
I mean, the Jets were thoroughly outcoached by a mediocre college coach this week.
yeah,
So when Cliff Kingsbury comes in and schools you, that should tell somebody that your coach stinks.
yeah,
It
yeah.
told me my coach stinks, and I knew that already. And I wanted to give Gase a shot. Maybe they saw something in him. Did he overachieve with Miami? He achieved something. Unlike most Jet fans who, yes, what do you think about the coach? And they'll just say, well, he's an idiot. Well, he's a fool. Well, he's a. I, I, I think Gase is a little weird and strange. I don't think he's stupid. I don't think the players relate to him. I don't think the players hate him. I just think they don't understand what he's talking about. And it's not, they don't understand it because it's so brilliant. They don't understand it because he can't explain it.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I don't
communication
think Gase
is
is a
hard.
bad guy or a stupid guy or can't do something in this league, but he can't. I don't want him coaching my team if I have a role as an executive here, which I appreciate you interviewing me for.
Indeed, Mr. Flick. I'm glad you could come in today. The So it sounds like what you're saying is you don't want to retread. You don't want a guy who's already had a job. You take a coordinator, the hot coordinator who may be the enemy, where would you get your coach from if it's not the enemy? Would you go to a winning franchise? Would you go to the Patriots, the Ravens, somebody like that? The Chiefs, obviously, the enemy.
Yes, I think if you looked around and looked at the Ravens and what they've produced, and if you go back years, they've had good coaches and a good coaching tree all the way back to like Brian Billick and those guys, and um, you know, I'd look for successful organizations, and even if they weren't necessarily the hot coordinator, that's okay. I'm looking for something a little different than what we got, that's for sure. And I'm more looking for something that's ours. I don't necessarily want a pro redo, retread, a guy that wasn't really successful, maybe was around 500. I don't want a Jason Garrett type. When
Right.
you look at his record and um, what he did as a coach, it probably doesn't look that bad, but that's the type of thing I don't want. Give me
Right.
something that's ours. Give me something new.
Got it. Just one last question on that a particular name, uh, and it's really a question about to me the coaching tree of Belichick. Would you give a Josh McDaniel another chance if you could lure him away from New England?
Which guy were you thinking of?
Josh McDaniel.
Yeah, I'm not that interested. I know he works with quarterbacks and he works pretty well with them. Yeah, I don't want him steering the ship. If he's somewhere in the organization, that's fine, but I wouldn't make him the head coach. I wouldn't even make him the OC.
Yep.
And I'm sure he's going to get some offers for one or both of those positions. So he's not my guy.
It is a curious thing. I know we talked about it offline in the last week or two. The strange and stark lack of success of any Belichick protege. The only exception to that statement is the linebacker Mike Vrabel, who's coaching the Titans now, who never coached for Bill, but obviously played for him. It's curious, and it's it goes. It's an extensive list now, and none of them have. I think there was one playoff win amongst all of them.
Yeah, you showed me that, and yeah,
Crazy.
it's hard to believe,
Yep.
but it's true.
Yeah. Anyhow, all
you
right. So
you want
cool.
to run through some positions here and see what I think?
Well, yeah. My next question was really on who do you think are the keepers that the team has?
There's not many. There's not many. Now, if you keep Sam because you don't get or can't get Lawrence, that's fine. He's a keeper. Um, Joe Flacco, if he wants to be the backup at a cheap price, I have nothing against that. Frank Gore seems like a nice guy, but I don't want him as my starting running back. I have no idea if Lamichael Pirine can carry it 20 times a game, but I would know that by the end of the season if I was in charge. I
Mm-hmm.
think the third string running back is a guy named Johnson who probably has single digit carries so far, so I know nothing about him. But if Pirine doesn't look like the answer, I'd be looking for a running back in the draft for sure. Getting to receivers, there's arguments over who has the best receiving core in the NFL. There's no argument as who has the worst. That would be the Jets.
Yeah.
The guys that have caught a lot of passes this year are Chris Hogan, who I didn't know was still in the league. Um, Jeff Smith, who when he caught his first pass, I had no idea who he was, and I know the roster pretty well. Crowder's been hurt. Perriman's been hurt. Barrios couldn't make the practice squad of some teams, so he should not be our leading receiver. And Herndon drops a lot of balls, but is probably our best receiver at tight end. So I'd keep Herndon. Mims hasn't been on the field, so I
Hold on
have
a second.
no idea if he can play or not. There's Vincent Smith that somehow has a Y in his name, and I don't know if he can play. There's so many guys I don't know, but I think you need to do two things at receiver. Certainly need to draft one that can play. And this is a position that I'm willing to look around for a free agent or a trade or get
Okay.
somebody that route.
So, and you had the number two pick this past year was
Yeah, this Denzel Mims,
right.
it, everyone says it should be a good receiver, but I've never seen him.
Right.
And there was no preseason, and he hasn't been on the field. So
Yeah.
I don't know if he's any good. And that's a second round pick that's useless. Yeah, we used the second pick for a left tackle. And who's the best player on the team right now? When he plays, it might be Becton. So good pick. Hopefully, he's our left tackle for 10 years and he plays 150 games for us. That might work. He looks like he's talented. Fine. Put him there, leave him alone, coach him up,
Yep.
and hopefully he's good.
Well, that's one of the key positions, right? If you've got a
Yeah,
left tackle
yeah,
and you got he was what the third or fourth tackle taken, and he looked like
yeah. He was a high pick, and it's a high pick for a left tackle, and it's a tough job to give a rookie. But one thing the Jets may have done right. I mean, one thing your organization may have done right is just throw him out there and see if he can do it. And he's going to take his lumps, and he's had a couple penalties and a couple minor injuries, and a couple guys have beaten him for sacks. That's okay. That's fine. That's how you're going to learn. By his second, third year, I want to see all pro quality from him, and I think you might.
yeah. Part of that too is having guys on the line next to you that are good, and I don't know that there are any other guys.
Yeah, and you don't know who they are because they stink.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, Alex Lewis, Josh Andrews, Greg Van Rotten, Connor McGovern, Chuma Ndoga. I don't know if any of these guys can play. They certainly don't look like it when they're blocking on third and ones.
yeah.
They certainly don't look like it when you know it's a passing situation and Sam has about 2 seconds to do anything, or Flacco. So
Yeah.
you need to get a lot of picks because these are positions that you can have at a cheaper price and still get some quality. But the Jets are going to be spending a lot of picks on offensive line. And that comes up as a need every year for them because these guys, it's a revolving door at guard and center and tackle. I'd like to have a line where at least three of the five guys are there for a few years together.
Yeah.
That's not too much to ask.
Well, last time the Jets had a really good offensive line was when you got DeBrickashaw and center.
Yeah, Mangold at center.
Yeah,
Then you had Rex Ryan coaching, and yeah, that was a good line. And you had two, if not Pro Bowl players, perennial very good players, and you built around them, and that was fine. I want to build around Becton and a high pick next year. Not necessarily the first pick, but the Jets do have two first round picks because they have Seattle's pick, which unfortunately Seattle keeps winning. That may not be a very high pick, but they have two first round picks. If you tell me the second of those picks is going for offensive line, I'm fine with that.
yeah. And you can usually get a good interior lineman, in the mid to late 20s.
Yeah.
A good center.
Teams have done it this year.
Right. So I agree with you. That makes good sense. It's better to draft that guy, and you can usually get a guard too. I mean, if they end up with the first or second pick, you can probably use your second and third picks. I mean, in the season.
Yeah, and if you want to spend some of the cap money, which the Jets will have for doing things like getting rid of Bell, which I wish you could have traded him for something, but I understand he had a big contract. But that'll slowly come off the books, and you should have some money to get an offensive line. So if you draft a good one early, draft a decent one late, and pick up one or two as free agents, that's fine.
Yeah, they definitely should be able to do that. I think the number I saw today is 81 million of cap space, which
Yeah, that's enough to get an offensive line.
absolutely, and you should be able to find a receiver or two. I saw that a couple of guys I like are free agents this coming year. Allen Robinson from Chicago.
Yeah, there. I don't want any part of troublemaking guys. A big thing people say is, well, you got to change the culture of the Jets. Nah, that comes with winning and it comes with a good coach. I'm not worried about culture, but I don't bring in automatic problems either.
Yeah, I get that. Do you like Juju Smith Schuster?
Yes, I like him a lot.
He's not. I
I
don't
like
know.
all those Pittsburgh
It seems like
receivers, but
uh,
go ahead.
and the one thing I noticed and heard people saying is that Jets need somebody to sort of stretch the defense and take the top off. I don't know if Mims from Baylor can be that guy. Would you take a shot at a guy like Sammy Watkins who's got that deep threat?
Sammy Watkins is a deep threat. Would I take? I probably would not. I take a shot at a deep threat type guy. He's just not the one I had in mind. I didn't necessarily have one in mind, but when they send these uh, running back wide receivers deep like this, Jeff Smith and Braxton Berrios, they're not getting any separation. They're not even getting past the
Yeah,
cornerback.
yeah.
So it's single coverage on the sides and double coverage in the middle, and the quarterbacks have no one to throw to. So it's not working. And the offense isn't very creative either. You can get guys open in different ways. The Jets seem to have no way of doing it.
So that's the offense. What about the defense?
All right. Our, our best defensive player, in my opinion, opted out. So, what am I going to say about that? Would he have opted out of a better team? Will he be back next year? I'm talking about CJ Mosley,
Hmm.
who is a good linebacker, and Avery Williamson is a decent linebacker. You have the beginnings of a reasonable linebacking core. So that's if you looked at needs, linebacker potentially isn't one of them. Jordan Jenkins, Frankie Louvu, they're competent linebackers as well. Um, Quinnen Williams is okay on the defensive line. Henry Anderson is okay. None of these guys are awesome. Nathan Shepard is okay. Um, I would have Williams back if he'd take a bit of a pay cut. Um, and getting some sort of defensive lineman would be, what you do with one of the third round picks, I would think.
What's your take on the defensive coordinator? If you're getting a Bieniemy or somebody like that, that's a good offensive coach. Typically, you want the defensive coordinator to be kind of his own.
He does some things well, and he has some blind spots, which are severe enough that teams can occasionally get big strikes, and teams occasionally can get the 17 play type touchdown drive. A little too much bend and don't break. One thing I've noticed with his defense, when he sends artificial pressure, meaning the line's not getting it, but someone's coming from the secondary or a linebacker's blitzing, the rest of the secondary plays so far off the receivers that if the quarterback has to bail out and throw a 5-yard pass, there's no threat of an interception because the cornerbacks are so far off.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to send that much pressure, get the cornerbacks up too. Get some turnover opportunities. So I don't like the guy if I want to bring a moral code into this, but he's not inept like Gase probably is. So I'd leave that up to whoever I hired as coach.
Okay. Do you have a
If
so
the
it sounds
coach
like
can work with him, fine. I'm not putting that on a new coach. I'm not saying if you come here, you have to keep our defensive coordinator. No way. No way.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
If
it
you
sounds like
want to, fine. You may still need a job.
you want a little bit of a different style, not so much changing the pressing the quarterback, uh, but how your DBs play.
Yeah, there's a disconnect between the line and the secondary that I would like to cure if I could.
Is it a lack of talent on the secondary? He doesn't want to get beat deep.
Well, it may be, but you don't get more talented by just giving up 10 and 15-yard passes over and over and over again.
Yeah.
You get burned deep once in a while, you get burned deep. All right, it happens. It happened to, I think it was Austin, got burned deep. Fine, fine. He's not a terrible player. He got burned deep. Okay. You gave the quarterback 5 seconds and he found someone. Yeah, it, I
Okay.
can live with that. I shake it off and go on to the next play. Desir had a good interception and he got beat a few times. It's all right. He'll be back. Is Marcus May a keeper? He certainly looks a lot less talented without his other running mate, the player that I can't mention at safety. But that player I can't mention isn't playing, hasn't played for a couple weeks, and we got a lot of picks because of him. So you know,
What's it?
I have to you know, be honest when I say, that trade hasn't been terrible.
Okay. Where else was I going to go? So I guess my two main questions left. One is uh, from another listener. I guess it's not a viewer, um, who was asking about relegation. It's something you and I have talked about on occasion.
It's right up there with tanking. Yes.
This is Scotty from Liverpool, uh, who is wondering if the NFL shouldn't work like the Premier League and have, he says specifically the Jets. I think to be kind, he may mean just teams at the bottom of the league sent to a lower league. Now, there really isn't a lower league, right? But
No, there's no USFL or send them back to college. Doesn't really work.
you could theoretically, have some sort of XFL or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know who would want to own an NFL team if that was in jeopardy. I certainly would never build a new stadium or yeah. So I think this goes again to is it wrong to go 0-16? Well, it's not wrong if you're actually trying your hardest and you go 0-16, and that may happen to this team.
Yeah.
And I predicted 3 wins and got laughed at for being so pessimistic, but I'm probably not far off. And if they win one or two and have the second overall pick in the draft, you go, I wish we lost them all and had that first pick. Yeah, I'm not going to do it intentionally. If it happens, it happens. Should they be relegated? I like that idea in sports with minor leagues, but there really isn't one in football. So I'll say no.
I do like the idea of, well, first of all, I do kind of like the idea of relegation. As you say, it's not practical to introduce now. I do like someone suggested the idea that the first overall pick should go to the team that misses the playoffs by the least.
By the closest amount.
Right, right. As they were trying hard to win and just missed it. That would make things interesting. You certainly wouldn't see teams tanking for
Do
that.
we at least get more ping pong balls if we come in last?
Yeah, I guess. So anyhow, that I do kind of like that idea for any sport, really. If you're worried about teams tanking to get the best pick, and Lawrence does look. I mean, frankly, back for a second, I've seen various people suggest he's the best prospect since Andrew Luck, best prospect since Peyton Manning. Uh, he looks like one of those types of franchise quarterbacks that you see, every 5 to 10 years. Uh, and he's, ever since his coming out in. Uh,
So, but this is where I go back to I kind of think there's something there with Sam. And if I happen to have the number one pick, what could I get for this generational talent? Could I get a team that's already in the top 10 to move up to number one, take their pick, number one pick, number two pick this year, and maybe a two going forward? I mean, what for move? Let's say I move down from 1 to 5.
Yep.
Can I get that team's number second round pick this year and a first or second round pick next year to move down 4 spaces?
But
I think
as
I
an
could get at
example,
least that.
when the Giants moved up to get Eli, they traded. It was the fourth overall pick, their second round pick, a fifth round pick that year, and their first and second round picks the following.
Yeah,
They moved up
and
3 spots.
the Jets need so much that having young talent on this team that just simply doesn't have enough talent, it's not a crazy idea to just get a lot of picks, use them wisely, um, at a lot of positions, and build a young team that's probably not going to be there in 2021, but maybe 2022 you get to the playoffs. In 2023 and 2024 you make serious playoff pushes. I'd be fine with that. I can deal with a 1-15 team this year and a 5-11 team next year, and then let's go. I can deal with that. It stinks that I've had to deal with it for 50 years, but I can deal with it another year and a half.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing in the NFL now is it does not take um, years and years to build up a team, and you really don't have that long, right? I mean,
No, but if I want to hire a coach who's never been a head coach before and I want to have a lot of young players, I'm realistic. It's probably not going to happen next year.
no,
But
I'm not suggesting it's an overnight thing, but it
yeah,
can be, as you said, within 2 years you can go become a contender, and you look at the Browns. The Browns were supposed to be good last year. They didn't. They didn't get there, but they're certainly looking like a contender this year, and not a Super Bowl contender, I would think, but certainly a playoff contender at 4-1, and a pretty good win last week. So, I guess that my last question is, what's
I'm okay with the field goal kicker and the punter, by the way. You didn't
okay?
address that, but
That
I'm
is
okay with it.
It's good to have a good punter. I always kind of like the idea of that one high school coach has of never kicking. In the guy in Arkansas, never punt, never kick a field goal. Just know you're going to go for it on fourth down, no matter what. I just wanted somebody to try that at a higher level.
The
Anyhow,
Jets have to punt a lot. You need a good punter.
but I regress. My last question for you, Flick, is why can't the Jets win? What's been missing all these years? Why do they? Is it the ownership? Is it just a snake bit? Is it just the law of averages that in a 30 team league, it's gonna some of the teams are gonna be are gonna go more than 30 years without winning? What's going on?
Here's what I'm doing at this interview. I don't care about looking back. It is what it is. They sucked. I don't think there's something in the water that they're always going to suck. They've been terrible for the most part from 1970 to 2020. Right? They've had an occasional AFC championship appearance, but for the most part, they've been awful. I don't think there's some big mystery. And even if I solved it, even if you said, yeah, it's ownership, oh, well, I'll just buy the team. Well, I can't do that. So I can't fire the owners. I don't think the owners are so bad that the league would step in. I think it's a matter of, they're the second team in town. They don't have great owners. They haven't had good coaches. They've changed the coaches a lot. They haven't had great quarterbacks. They've changed the quarterbacks a lot. And here I am saying change the quarterback and change the coach. I realize that. But you got to hit on the right one. And that's with my leadership, that's what's going to happen in 2021, 2022. We're going to have the right
Yeah,
people in place, the right coach in place, and let's go. I can't do anything about those 50 years. Let's make the next 10 really, really darn good with a few Super Bowl appearances and a few rings on the finger.
and maybe Darnold as your quarterback,
And that's okay.
or maybe
That's okay. If Darnold's the quarterback, great. If Lawrence is the quarterback, great. I think it can work either way. But I know it's not working now, and retread running backs aren't working, and um, non-talented guys that you grab in the draft, that's not working, and that's never going to work. So let's change it going forward, and we won't worry about those 50 years. I can't solve that.
yeah. I think you're
Unless
right.
I have a DeLorean going 88, I can't do anything about that.
And the flux capacitor. Don't forget the
Well,
flux
you need a
capacitor.
flux capacitor, obviously.
Yeah. Um, I agree with you on that. I think that the way to me is that the one thing that the winning teams consistently do is get good players, usually through the draft, but also through free agency. Um, the NFL doesn't have a lot of trades, which makes them unique amongst the major professional sports. Um, but the thing to do, the thing that teams like Kansas City and New England and Baltimore do a lot is trade down for an extra pick, or trade several picks to move up.
Yeah,
And
and
value.
Douglas did some of that this year, and he's the current GM, and he did some of that, and I appreciate it, and looked like he had a plan. That plan's painful, and probably more painful than he even predicted this year. But at least it's something going forward. He had a vision, and I don't want to. I'll take some role, probably not GM, because I think the Jets do have a GM that I want to give a few years. But if the GM and coach are tied, and you're telling me I got to keep both or get rid of both, I'm rid of them. The coach is just that bad.
Yeah, no, I think we knew he was a bad coach the day he hired him. It was not a good decision. Um, I think you're right. The jury's out on Darnold. Personally, I would keep Gaze for the rest of the season, as painful as
So
that may be.
so they lose. So they accidentally tank.
So they and yeah, and if you can end up with that number one, the difference this year between the number one and the number two pick is going to be stark in value.
Yes,
And if that means
that's
losing an extra game or two this year, I'm doing it.
right. And
And
if looking at the Jet schedule, there's not a lot of potential wins there.
there or not, they should be, particularly looking at the Dolphins' last performance. I thought that might be a game that they might be able to steal one of those games against the Dolphins.
No,
I see that
and
now. I mean, the
they haven't
Dolphins.
played the Patriots at all. They play
Yep.
a tough division in the NFC. They play a tough division in the AFC. It's just like it's hard to go 16-0. It's hard to go 0-16, and they probably won't. But will they do enough to get the number one pick? They might.
The Giants should win a couple games.
Yes,
The
because the
Giants
Eagles and
are the worst division in football by far. They play
yeah,
everybody.
the Washington unprofessional team and the Eagles and even the Cowboys are pretty bad. They should win a few.
Yep, yep. So I'm not worried about the Giants. I am a little worried about the Falcons, but if they fired their coach already, I think that can often get a team to get a couple wins, like Houston did after they fired their coach. I don't think that's accidental. I think it's
Well,
not just
Boz, thanks for giving me a chance at this interview, and I hope to be hearing from you soon. And those of you who sent questions or were listening, we appreciate all of that. And we'll be back with another Flick in the Boz Man before too long. Take it easy, everyone.